Chief Justice John Roberts? That's now the question. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, almost unprecedented. I'm not saying it's unprecedented because it has happened before a few times in the past, but let's put it this way, extremely rare. Chief Justice John Roberts yesterday publicly rebuked President Trump. And without naming him, it was clearly intended against him. And what Roberts was reacting to was President Trump's call on Truth Social in a blistering social media post calling for the impeachment of that radical left-wing lunatic, Judge James Bosberg. As we talked about recently, Bosberg is the Obama-appointed judge, a man of the far hard left, who literally blocked President Trump's executive order deporting over 250 Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gangbangers and terrorists. Again, these are people, illegal aliens, criminals in our country, murderers, rapists, kidnappers, weapons traffickers, drug dealers, child molesters. They have been convicted of every grotesque crime imaginable. And yet, this out-of-control judge issues an outrageous order blocking Trump from deporting them, and not only that, ordering that the planes that were deporting them be turned around. Obviously, Trump told them to go fly a kite. They were in the air at the time. They said it was an oral directive, not a written directive. And so they landed the planes in El Salvador, where these Tren de Aragua gangbangers, along with some MS-13 thugs, were put in a maximum or a supermax prison. Now, for 14 days, President Trump's hands have been tied by Judge Bosberg. He cannot deport a single member of Tren de Aragua, even though they are a designated foreign terrorist organization. And this 14-day period, this injunction, may be renewed again and again and again. So, a single judge is now usurping the power of the president and overruling the president, literally overruling the president on a matter of national security that the president campaigned on and won his election. And so Trump rightly went to Truth Social and said, this guy is abusing his power, usurping his authority. He doesn't have jurisdiction. This is not just judicial overreach. This is the sabotage of my administration. It's another form of lawfare. And he should go. He needs to be impeached. Roberts immediately came out with a statement. Listen now to this, where he attacked President Trump, not by name, but it was obvious it was intended against him. And so he wrote, and this is very, very rare, this is what he wrote. He, according to Roberts, he came out and said that for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial system. Concerning a judicial decision, Roberts said. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. So, what he's essentially telling Trump, you had no right to call for Bosberg's impeachment. If you don't like what this judge did, take it through the normal appellate process. In other words, you can appeal. This can go up to other courts. Eventually, maybe it'll reach the Supreme Court. That's how you deal with it. You don't go on social media and call for this judge's Bosberg's impeachment. In other words, Roberts is defending Bosberg. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, Why? Why? Why would Roberts go out of his way to defend Bosberg? And I think, to me, there is no other conclusion. He's being blackmailed. He's compromised. He's clearly compromised. I think he's part of I think they have him on the Epstein list personally, but we'll see. I want the Epstein list to be released. But whatever they have on him, it is very clear that Roberts now is no longer acting in the best interests of the judiciary. He is no longer acting in the best interests of the court. He is clearly now becoming a part of the anti-Trump resistance to undermine, block, and ultimately sabotage President Trump and his agenda. I can't read the evidence any other way. Bosberg's ruling was absolutely outrageous, beyond outrageous, and on two grounds. Number one, he is not elected president of the United States. As Newt Gingrich rightly said, if Roberts is so intent on protecting the independence of the judiciary, then he needs to step up and block these bad judges, call out these bad judges before the executive and the legislative branches intervene. He has to overrule these bad judges when they are clearly now trying to overrule the President of the United States, who is behaving well within his constitutional powers and constitutional authority. Look, I'm sorry. You're going to tell me now that the president doesn't have the power to designate a group as a foreign terrorist organization? No, he can't do that now. We have to rely on a judge. And since they're designated as a foreign terrorist organization, he doesn't have the right to deport them? It's got to what? Every single district judge now has the right to decide whether Trump can act as commander-in-chief. If you allow this precedent, it will literally paralyze and destroy the executive branch. They're telling the president that he cannot control, administer, or run or oversee the entire branch of government that he's the head of. The only one attacking our separation of powers are these rogue, out-of-control activist judges. The only ones that are usurping authority is them. The only one triggering a constitutional crisis is them. It's not Trump. And notice, when AOC and the Democrats proposed legislation under Biden to literally pack the Supreme Court, in other words, to dilute and water down the very power of the bench that Roberts sits on, that he oversees. He's the Chief Justice. Did he issue a statement rebuking them? Нет. When they called for the impeachment of certain judges, when AOC last year openly called for Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas, to be impeached from the bench, along with other leading Democrats, did Chief Justice John Roberts come out and say, for over 2 centuries, we don't use impeachment. It's inappropriate. You shouldn't attack the independence of the judiciary. Niet. But he comes to the rescue of Bosberg? I want to know, what do they have on Roberts? He's clearly compromised, and he's clearly being blackmailed. And if he is being blackmailed, and I believe he is, then he has no right to be sitting on that bench. He should resign effective immediately. Now, on the bigger issue, President Trump now needs to take this all the way to the Supreme Court immediately. And the question now is this: does a district judge have the power of the president? Because what you're seeing, my friends, is the Democrats now can't stop him in Congress. They clearly can't stop him with public opinion. They couldn't beat him in the election. And so now you are seeing dozens and dozens of these district judges act as part of the resistance, la résistance. And they are now looking to sabotage, block, and essentially paralyze Trump's presidency. In fact, another district judge just yesterday came out and said what Doge did to USAID, unconstitutional. Another district judge said Trump now has to release billions of dollars in foreign aid. In other words, they're declaring null and void practically everything that Trump has done. Doge is unconstitutional. Cutting the federal bureaucracy is unconstitutional. Cutting foreign aid is unconstitutional, according to them. And now, deporting foreign terrorists and transgender, that's unconstitutional. This is a power grab by the liberal judges in the judiciary. Trump needs to stop it now. Trump now faces, in some ways, the greatest crisis of his presidency, a judicial crisis. Some are calling it now even a constitutional crisis. 6:18 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. President Trump yesterday gave a wide-ranging interview to Laura Ingraham on Fox News. And I'll play some cuts, obviously, from it. But what the big takeaway was that it's obvious that Trump now realizes he's being attacked again. This is another form of lawfare, except they're not weaponizing so much the legal system to prosecute him and put him behind bars. They're now weaponizing the judicial system, and in particular, these lower court judges, district court judges, like this clown, Judge James Bosberg, among others, who now are deliberately issuing restraining orders, injunctions, blocking Trump from being able to effectively govern as president of the United States. And that's, if you read the famous novel Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, they remind me of where, the Lilliputians. Those were very little people. They're very small. In fact, they don't have a lot of power, but they were able to keep tying up a giant. They just kept tying him up and tying him up and tying him up and tying him up. And before you know it, the giant becomes utterly paralyzed. And that's what they are. They're left-wing, radical Lilliputians, activist judges who are substituting themselves for the authority and legitimacy of the president of the United States. Make no mistake about what we're watching. This is a naked power grab in which the judicial branch or aspects, rogue judges in the rogue judiciary are trying to deliberately usurp the legitimate constitutional power of the president of the United States. And Trump now has to deal with this because they're going to effectively grind his presidency to a halt. So as I speak to you now, listen to this. Trump is unable to make deportations. He has been blocked. MS-13 gangbangers, Aragua, criminal illegal aliens. Again, these are people with records, either here or from Venezuela, where most of them were deliberately released from prisons. These are convicted murderers, rapists, child sex predators, extortionists. They engage in drug trafficking, child trafficking, weapons trafficking. We're talking about people who've engaged in massive crimes here, including the murder of Laken Riley, and then the gang rape and then mutilation of Joycelyn Nungare, a 12-year-old child. And the judge is siding with them, saying that they should not be deported. They have a right to stay in the United States, and that Trump is wrong to be deporting them. And so he's effectively now blocked President Trump. In fact, he's now ordered the White House. There's a deadline today at noon that he has to provide the details of the deportations of Tren de Aragua and MS-13. How are they able to track them down? Where are they deporting them to? Where are they deporting them from? The logistics of these deportations. Now, I'm telling you that this judge is out of control. And I want to give a big hat tip to Laura Loomer. Listen now to this story. I talked about it on X last night. Again, if you're not following me on X, trust me, you're missing a lot. Believe me. Again, Laura Loomer was the one who broke this story. Judge Bosberg has a daughter. Her name is Catherine Bosberg. She works for a radical left-wing open borders group. What do you think the group champions? By the way, we pay that group. That's taxpayer dollars. Grant after grant after grant. We are literally paying for this group through taxpayer dollars. And they provide illegals with free legal services. By the way, including convicted felons and gangbangers. We pay for lawyers for them through taxpayer money. Okay, but let that go. The group is opposed to mass deportations. They say it is a crime to deport anyone, including convicted murderers, rapists, and felons. So you have a judge's daughter who is working and getting paid off the taxpayer dime for a group that is rabidly anti-Trump, campaigned against Trump, is dead set against his deportations, and even sides with criminal, illegal, alien, violent offenders and felons, saying you should not deport them, you should leave them here in the United States. This screams conflict of interest. As I said on X last night, can you say conflict of interest? And not only is it a naked, corrupt conflict of interest, this is like Judge Merchan and the whole Alvin Bragg case all over again. But now you want the president and his team to hand over this judge with that daughter? And what they're basically there to help illegals get away and to help Tren de Aragua and MS-13 escape American custody and American detention and American deportation. And you want the American government to hand over the judge specific details and logistics about how they go after Tren de Aragua and MS-13, how they capture them, how they detain them, how they deport them, from which airports? Are you freaking crazy? Are you crazy? This judge needs to be recused. He needs to be impeached. We're talking, this is naked corruption and abuse of power. But he must be recused. Period. He should not be overseeing this case. Agree, disagree. I want to ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who do you blame for this judicial crisis? As Chief Justice John Roberts basically said yesterday, we are now in a judicial constitutional crisis. Is it A, these rogue judges, these activist lower court judges, people like James Bosberg, or B, as Roberts was implying, it's President Trump? That Trump is the initiator. Trump is the aggressor. Trump should just let all of this play out in the appeals process as it drags on for months and months and months, in many cases for years. You know where I stand. I think this is A all the way. It's these rogue activist judges who are bent on an unprecedented power grab. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner. KUHN is in National ER. Or if you prefer via X, you can vote there. I'm very active. My handle at the Kuhner Report. One word. 617-266-6868 is the number. Listen to the new iHeartRadio app with preset buttons. You can set the app to play the Kuhner Report automatically. Okay. Was Trump out of line for demanding that Judge James Bosberg be impeached? Judge Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts, yesterday said yes. It was a rebuke from the bench saying that you don't do this in the United States. This is an attack on the judiciary, the independence of the judiciary, that these are noble judges, these are good judges, and that if you have a problem with a judge's decision, you take it to appeal and you let itself work its way through the entire judicial process. It was a direct slap in the face to Trump. He didn't call him out by name, but it was clear who was intended to. Listen now. Trump yesterday interviewed by Laura Ingraham. She asked him point blank, you called for the impeachment of Bosberg, and Chief Justice John Roberts ran to his defense. Do you have a comment? Roll cut 2, Mike.
The Chief Justice said it was more than two centuries. We understood that essentially impeachment was for very rare circumstances and not an appropriate response to rulings you disagree with. What's your reaction to the courts stepping in to make a statement here? They didn't make a statement when Joe Biden decided to forgive all those student loans.
Well, he didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name, but many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. He was Obama appointed. And he actually said we shouldn't be able to take criminals, killers, murderers, horrible, the worst people, gang members, gang leaders, that we shouldn't be allowed to take them out of our country. Well, that's a presidential job. That's not for a local judge to be making that determination.
He's completely right. But what these district judges are now doing is they're arrogating to themselves essentially the power of the executive branch, of being literally of being president. You have about 676, 680 district judges. And you've got these rogue judges now who now say, no, you may have won the election, but we're the president. We decide who you can deport, who you can't deport, who you can fire, who you can't fire, what programs you can cut, what programs you can't cut, what foreign aid you can cut, what foreign aid you can't cut. Basically, they want to put Trump in a straitjacket and literally cripple him politically, legally, constitutionally, make it impossible for him to do his job. What should Trump do? And in this battle between Trump and Chief Justice Roberts, who do you side with? Jack in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jack.
Hopefully after this phone call, you and I can remain friends. I am not Bill from Sudbury, but I do agree with Justice Roberts that Trump speaking out specifically saying he should be impeached is wrong. Definitely wrong. But it's two different issues. The judges are wrong. I'll guarantee you every one of these radical judges have somebody below them, a daughter, a son, in some kind of an organization. This is more than coincidence, Jeff. Way more than coincidence. My advice, Trump defies the order, the 14-day order, and what they say no, forget it. You're getting nothing. You can't stop me. You don't have the constitutional right to stop me, and challenge him and force them to go through the courts, because this has got to stop. The only way it stops, you got to bring it to a head, because you can't play legal games, because they will drag it through the courts for years and handcuff him. Defy the order. That's what I say. Defy the order. Let the judge enforce it. Let's see what he can do. Bring it to a head, because it's got to get before the Supreme Court justices. They ruled against us on the spending of USA. What was it, $2 billion, $20 billion? They let that, or $20 million, whatever it was, when Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett went against us. But that was a separate issue. They weren't challenging the legality of the judge's rulings. They were challenging about the money. And the money was already allocated, so they they ruled in it against us. But we have to bring the issue of all these judges trying to usurp the President of the United States or usurp the President of the United States. Got to come to a head. I say defy it.
Well, Jack, I have to be honest. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know where the disagreement is. I'm nodding my head. I'm like, okay, yeah, agree. I'm like, I hope we can still be friends. I'm waiting for that part where we're not supposed to be friends. I think what you're saying, Jack, is he shouldn't have gone on Truth Social and called for Bosberg to be impeached, correct? I think that's your point of contention with Trump?
Roberts is right. On that one thing, for once, he's right. The president shouldn't call for the impeachment of a judge because, you're calling out the judicial system. He's defending the judicial system. Right or wrong, he's defending the system itself. And he has to as the Chief Court Justice of the United States. He has to defend that branch. What is it, Article 3 in the Constitution?
But, Jack, let me ask you this. No, I understand. You're making a very coherent argument. Frankly, you're definitely not Bill from Sudbury. I guarantee you that. You're making a very smart, intelligent, cogent, coherent argument. No, Jack, look, he's not going to remove the judge. It's not like Trump said, hey, I'm going to impeach him or, I'm going to lead efforts in Congress to impeach him. He's just basically saying this guy's out of control and Congress should step in. It's up to Congress and impeach this judge. Now, you're right. It is rare that judges are impeached. It's been about 15 times in our history. I think the last one was like 15 years ago. But, to me, a president venting and going after a clearly out of control, frankly, rogue judge who is he's got massive conflicts of interest. I don't think it's so out of bounds. And then you say, well, Chief Justice Roberts has to defend the judiciary. Well, where was he? Okay, fine. Let's just assume that for the sake of argument. But where was he when Joe Biden deliberately ignored the Supreme Court's ruling on student loans? Roberts didn't open his mouth. You want to talk about an attack on the judiciary? You couldn't get a more mortal blow than that. Or when AOC called for his own colleague to be impeached. And not just AOC, the Democrats were pushing legislation in both the House and the Senate. Schumer led it in the Senate. AOC led it in the House. They wanted Clarence Thomas to be impeached. I'm not talking on a social media post or, in an email. I'm talking about literally introducing legislation to force Thomas off of the Supreme Court. Roberts didn't open his mouth. He didn't issue a statement. Or when they wanted to pack the Supreme Court, which would have destroyed the Supreme Court effectively. He didn't open his mouth. But now, all of a sudden, he has to open his mouth against Trump. He's compromised, Jack. Roberts is not doing anything for the integrity of the judicial branch. He's being obviously blackmailed. He's being compromised. And now he's joined the resistance against Trump. Final word to you, Jack.
Jeff, I'll agree with those points, but he's never been on our side. We know that. He's never voted our way. So I agree to that. But like I said, it's definitely two separate issues. That's all I'm saying. It's definitely two separate issues.
So you're saying ignore him, but he should not have called for him to be impeached. Correct, Jack?
Ignore him? Yeah, just like Joe Biden did. But Joe Biden was never going to be challenged. But Joe Biden never called for I don't think the other...
Oh, no, other presidents have called for judges to be impeached. They've even called for justices to be impeached. And they didn't make a big stink the way Roberts has. So, but no, I hear you. Look, Jack, I hear you. And on that one small point, we agree to disagree. Otherwise, I agree with 99% of what you said. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is a really good point from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, not one judge blocked any of the Biden administration's policies or decisions or executive orders to do whatever the hell they wanted, which, by the way, were mostly illegal, except when the Supreme Court told Biden he could not forgive student loans. But Biden ignored it, and nothing was said. What freaking law school did these judges go to, if they did at all? Well, it's the school of destroy Donald Trump. Look, there's no question. Judge Bosberg, this guy's not a judge. He's a Democrat activist, an open borders activist, masquerading as a judge. He's got a Looney Tune daughter. Okay, you want to talk about a hardcore moonbat who works, as I said, for this very far left open borders group, which, by the way, is funded by our taxpayer dollars. This is incredible. And literally, I'm not kidding, you can look it up. Her name is Catherine Bosberg, Boasberg. And they are dead set against stopping Trump. They hate Trump. They revile Trump. But beyond that, they want to stop all deportations of any single illegal, including convicted felons and gangbangers. So they're saying, no, Trender Aragua should not be deported. MS-13, absolutely not. You can murder as many people. You can rape as many young girls like Joycelyn Nungare. You can rape her, 2 men, repeatedly, and then dismember the body. You can murder Laken Riley. You cannot deport him. They literally side with the most vile, criminal, illegal aliens and saying that no person should be deported. That's the daughter of this so-called judge. And you're going to tell me this doesn't scream conflict of interest? I mean, this guy's a joke. This whole thing is a joke. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the text line on fire. This is what 917 writes. Jeff, John Roberts is useless. Where are the Republicans? Where is Trump's support mechanism? It seems that the only one doing the heavy lifting is Donald Trump. He's out there all by himself. Of course. And look at the disadvantage now that Trump has. Congress won't act. Republicans in Congress aren't going to defend him, even though they could easily push back these out-of-control judges, but they don't do a thing. And now the left has succeeded in weaponizing the judicial system, and these rogue judges now have essentially made themselves president, so they can pretty much block anything Trump does. It doesn't matter how well-defined it is within the Constitution, and just drag it out in the courts forever. So essentially, they're overthrowing the results of the election. That's essentially what's happening in front of our eyes. They're trying to render the president a useless, pitiful giant. He may be the commander-in-chief. He may be the head of the executive branch. He may have won an overwhelming popular mandate. What they're telling him is, blank you. Some unelected, unaccountable, no-name judge appointed by either Biden or Obama or Clinton can overrule the president on national security, on foreign policy, on literally who he can fire and not fire, who he can deport and not deport within the executive branch. Ay. That would literally be like a judge saying, no, you can't pass a budget to Congress. Really? Nah, you can't write a bill. What do you mean we can't write a bill? No, I'm sorry. No, we're not going to let you write the bill. Sorry, no. No, you may think you have the right to pass a budget. No, you don't. The power of the purse? You don't have the power of the purse. We have the power of the purse. They've got to be put in their place now. Or I'm telling you, we're going down the road of judicial tyranny. It's so obvious to me. And that Roberts would go out of his way and literally torch his credibility, whatever is left. And it's gone. After yesterday, it is gone. It is gone. So he would burn up his own credibility, burn it to the ground to defend Bosberg? What do they have on him? That's what I want. He's clearly being blackmailed. He's clearly compromised. You know my suspicion. I think they've got him on Epstein Island. Okay, but whatever it is, Chief Justice John Roberts is no longer a justice. He's now become a compromised, blackmailed, extorted hack. He needs to resign ASAP. Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Jeff, I gotta say, I'm starting a running tally of how much Tylenol you owe me. Oh my God!
Well, you got a headache there, Larry?
Already. And not to disparage your first caller, but yeah, he's wrong, and he can just sit there in his wrongness. So, anytime there's an argument, the easiest way to counter it is to flip the script, right? How long has these rogue judges been going off the reservation and become an activist and blocking presidents? How long has that been going on? In 200 years of judicial review, if you want to play Robert's game.
Yeah, no, it's extremely recent. It's very recent. Very recent.
Right. And why did AOC want to get rid of Thomas? What was her excuse? Not the real reason, but what was the excuse the libs were using?
Well, that he took lavish gifts and that they were unaccounted for.
And his wife was running some, working with some conservative outlet group, and that was a conflict of interest.
That's right.
Yet all these kids of all these radical judges get to do whatever they want? Oh, hell no. Robert should just shut up and sit down. Now, I appreciate you giving me some leeway here. What is the only thing keeping the judiciary in its current form?
Well, I mean, you mean the fact that they blocked the packing of the Supreme Court?
No. All right, I'm sorry. I could have said this better. What if Trump, Homan, Bongino, all them gave the bird to the judiciary and just started pushing out and getting rid of all these people? What would the judiciary do?
Well, there's nothing it can do. It's toothless. That's the problem.
Why? We know this, but the masses don't. That's why they fall for this crap when every time the liberals say he's breaking orders and doing all this stuff. The only thing is a gentleman's agreement that they will abide by like you said, the toothless judiciary. He can start it today and start pushing them out today and say, give it a try, stop me. And what would it do? It would destroy the judicial system when the masses realize there's nothing to it. It's all a farce. It's all just basically a paper tiger. And lastly, the cojones on this low-ranking judge to say he's on the same level as the president. Now, Jeff, we've discussed this. I was an aircraft mechanic, specifically on the C-130 Hercules. This is a transport plane, okay? Let me give you the best way to describe this. I'm back in the Air Force. I'm working on my plane. All of a sudden, that big limousine pulls up. Trump jumps out and tells me, Airman, I need this plane ready to go in an hour. We're going to start dropping off all these Trinidad Aragua idiots off. Get this plane ready for me. What do you think I would tell him?
Oh, yes, sir. Right?
Yes, sir, right away. Same thing. Judge pulls up in his little Volvo, jumps out and tells me, I need this plane to stop President Trump from doing this, and this. What do you think I'd tell him?
Blank off.
or what are you doing on my airfield and you're under arrest?
Well, Larry, look, I think you've summed it up really, really well. And no, look, you're right. You're completely right. Here, let me flip it just a little bit. What if I went to the president of iHeart and said, no, you can't do what you're doing? Whatever decision he's made, okay? Whatever. I'm just making it up now. They're going to buy another 100 stations, just whatever, okay? Or they fired people in San Antonio or laid off people, I'm just making it up, laid off people at stations in Chicago, okay? Because iHeart's the biggest news radio cluster in the country. I go, no, you can't do it. No, I'm sorry, I disagree with that. No, I don't think it was the right thing to do. What would he say to me? Rightly. Because who the hell are you, man? Well, I'm Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, and shut up and stay in your lane. That's what he would say. Go on the air and do your show. Shut up. I'm the CEO. I run the company. I make the decisions. And if, the shareholders don't like it, they can remove me. I answer to the shareholders. I don't answer to you. You're not my boss. What are you at the same level as me? Who died and made you CEO? That's literally what this judge is now doing. And other judges like him. They're elevating themselves to president of the United States. And they're behaving in a way, just as I said, if I said, because, they're now blocking him from firing people. They're preventing him from shutting down Doge. They're preventing him from cutting U.S. foreign aid. So it would be like me here. Just take my analogy. No, those cuts you made in San Antonio. No, you can't do that because I said so. No, those stations you shuttered in Chicago, or no, you may think it's waste, fraud, and abuse. I disagree. I see people who are laid off. They have jobs. They have families. You're going to have to reinstate them. He goes, on whose authority? Well, because I'm Jeff Kuhner. He'd say, get the hell out of here. Go fly a kite. Hit the road. What are you, nuts? So all Trump did, this is what I find a bit odd. He's attacking the judiciary by calling for this clown to be impeached. Suddenly now he's attacking the whole judicial system, but he's the president of the United States. Well, then let him be president of the United States. The judge is inserting himself in something that is none of his business, that he doesn't have the authority, he doesn't have the jurisdiction, he doesn't have the right, he doesn't have the power. A judge cannot order the executive branch. A judge cannot, as Newt Gingrich said, we're going to have judges now make management and personnel decisions for the president of the United States? He goes, are you serious? He goes, not only is this a gross violation of separation of powers, but effectively these judges are now they're basically saying, I can overrule the president as he's doing his job. I'm president. He's not president. Well, who elected you? It doesn't matter. I'm making myself president. And that's why here, I'll read Gingrich. And then Larry, I want you to get the last word in. Here's Gingrich. And I think he hit the nail right on the head. This is what Gingrich wrote on X. Quote, if Chief Justice Roberts wants to minimize attacks on out-of-control appointed left-wing district court judges abusing their role and claiming to be able to overrule the elected president of the United States on management details that are clearly within his role as defined by the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, then he should intervene and overrule these absurd power grabs. The Chief Justice can defend the court by overruling bad judges before the executive and legislative branches start acting against them. The burden is on the Chief Justice, not the president. 1,000% correct. In other words, stay in your own lane. Police your own judiciary. Because they're in the business now of the executive branch. They're trying to clearly, this is not just judicial overreach. This is sabotage. They're trying now to sabotage and undermine its lawfare and undermine and paralyze and cripple Trump's presidency. And so Roberts right away needs to say, no, I'm sorry. Hey, what are you doing down there? You don't have the right to do that. If he would overrule these outrageous judges, then you wouldn't have this so-called crisis. But you're allowing them to usurp the power of the president and the executive branch. Well, what do you think? The executive branch is just going to sit there and take it? You think of any president, forget Trump, so a president's going to sit back and say, yeah, take away all my power. Go ahead. Okay, you make personnel, not me. You make the personnel decisions? Okay. So you decide who we deport? Yeah, you, not me, you? Okay. Oh, hold on. So we can't get rid of USAID, even though we found all this fraud? Even though it's under my control, my purview? It's an agency under the executive branch? Oh, okay, so you're running the government now. Okay, yeah, sure. So, of course the legislative branch is going to push back. Of course the executive branch is going to push back. They'd be crazy not to. Am I wrong? Is Gingrich wrong, Larry?
No, you're 100% correct. And while we're on that topic really quick, this judge shopping has to stop. You know, these Democrats should not be able to go and search out these activist judges, because that's what's happening. We all know it. And that needs to stop. These, again, with your previous caller, I don't want to wait on the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has not had the best track record of doing what's constitutionally correct since basically 2008 when Obama took over. And I sent you, I know this is a little off topic, but I sent you an article about, it seems like there's evidence came out that Obama pushed to have the current Pope installed because he was a puppet.
Yes.
I think that's what, along the lines of, who is the original, J. Edgar Hoover had all that compromise on everybody to get his way. I think that's what Obama's first term was setting up all these puppets and using all this material to get people to do their own thing, and he's still using it. And you're right. Bongino, Kash Patel, dig into it, use Doge, use those computer geniuses, find out what they have on Roberts, and bounce them.
I agree. No, Larry, I completely agree. Larry, as usual, thank you very much for that call. Look, there's clearly compromat, as the Russians would say. Okay, whatever, compromising material, information that they have on Roberts. There's no question now. I mean, this is so naked. It's so brazen. It's so obvious. It's so egregious. So the question now is, what are Republicans willing to do? That's now the question, as usual. 617-266-6868. Rick in the great state of Tennessee. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning to you.
Hi.
Let's remember back in 2021, there were rumors swirling around Washington about Justice Roberts' illegal adoption of 2 Irish babies. It was a well-known fact that he and his wife could not conceive. They were desperate to have children to round out. He and his wife are very strict, staunch Catholics, Irish Catholics. They wanted to round out their family. They couldn't do it because they were baronless. They were turned down by apparently the Irish the Irish Adoption Service, and at that time, Ireland, and I think maybe it still does, has some of the strictest adoption laws in the world. You wait years to get into that system. At any rate, the good justice was he was appointed by Bush in 2005, so he was on the bench. He desperately wanted these kids. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. About 18 months later, he gets these kids via a Chilean adoption agency. So obvious question was, how is it that he got around the Irish adoption authorities, and had to go to a Latin American country to bring these children into the family. The two children is a boy and a girl, Jack and Josephine. There's a lot of photos on the internet of them, but like you say, he's being compromised. I don't think it's because of his religious background. I do not think in his high profile that he would have been compromised by Jeffrey Epstein in the way that most of us think Jeffrey Epstein compromised people through a sexual honey trap operation. I think that Jeffrey Epstein maybe used his influence to facilitate this roundabout way of getting Justice Roberts his adopted Irish children. What do you think?
Rick, that's what I want to find out. I mean, they clearly have something on him. I've heard those rumors about the adoption going back many, many years. I've also heard rumors now that apparently he was on those flights on the so-called Lolita Express to what they called, forgive me, Orgy Island. So there's when he rewrote Obamacare, that decision on Obamacare, and the way he turned himself into a pretzel and violated all of his so-called previous principles and beliefs to get Obamacare through and to make it, constitutionally pass muster, I knew something was up. And he's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I got a story, by the way. You have to hear this regarding Bosberg and Chief Justice John Roberts to show you now the dark path that Roberts has gone down. So, Rick, whatever it is, I agree with you. It's bad, and he's being compromised. He's being blackmailed. There's no question. Okay, you're not going to believe the connection between Roberts and Bosberg? Next. 7:18 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, are we now in a judicial or constitutional crisis? That is now the question. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from Michael on Messenger, and it's half tongue-in-cheek, but I think he's really got a superb point. Jeff, it's just a matter of time before some district judge, a rogue judge, blocks President Trump from moving our troops and military equipment because no one has the balls to step up and say anything. Bingo, Michael. Look, as I speak to you now, Trump has now ordered punishing missile, drone, and airstrikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen. As you know, they have been harassing and attacking American ships, commercial shipping, attacking freedom of navigation, shipping lanes through the Red Sea, which is one of the most important waterways in the entire world. And Trump is saying, Biden didn't do anything. I will. I cannot allow global shipping, and especially American shipping, to be paralyzed. We're talking about literally hundreds of billions of dollars. And so he is now pounding the Houthi rebels who are backed by Iran. And so I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time before some judge says, no, you don't have the right to do that. No, I'm sorry, you have to cease your bombing or your missiles being launched, and you got to stop, and I got to decide whether you can bomb the Houthis or not. Like, that's literally the stage that we're now approaching. There was a joke. I mean, someone mentioned it yesterday, but I saw it on the Babylon Bee. Those two great heroes from SpaceX, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who came back and were rescued by Elon and SpaceX. And by the way, Elon, I thought, did, again, a phenomenal job. This is a great American story. They were stranded in space for 9 months. I don't know how they survived, for God's sake. something out of a Hollywood movie. And Elon sent up a SpaceX rocket, the Dragon, and rescued them. And they landed, thank the Lord, safely yesterday off the coast of Florida. And the Babylon Bee had a joke, no, judge steps in and orders that they turn around and go back to SpaceX. When I first saw that, I'm like, did the judge? I'm not kidding. I was like, is this a joke or like, because you can almost half believe it. Or did some crazy moonbat judge say, nah, this is going to make Trump look too good. It's going to make Elon look too good. Biden left them stranded up there. He left them, talk about leaving them twisting in the wind. He was going to let them die. Literally, he was going to let them die. And here you have Trump and Musk to the rescue. And some judge may say, well, you don't have the power to do that. Or this may be offensive to the aliens. Or did the aliens give their approval to rescue these two people? Like, really, who knows? So, no, you can't go up there. You have to go back to the space station. We're not allowing you to come back. This is a dictatorship. Who the hell is Trump to rescue people in outer space? So I thought, is this a joke? Or is this serious? Because that's how out of control they've become. Now, what is the link? There is a key link between Bosberg and Roberts. And let me tell you what it is. And this is beyond shocking. John Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, is the one who personally placed Judge James Bosberg, remember on that FISA court that was secretly spying on Trump and Trump's campaign? Well, who do you think put Judge Bosberg in charge of that? It was Roberts. So Roberts was the one who personally appointed and placed Bosberg to sit on the FISA court that rubber stamped all of the illegal spying, the illegal spy warrants, the illegal surveillance against Donald Trump and the Trump campaign in 2016, 2017, 2018. Bosberg is Roberts' guy. And Roberts is the one that put him essentially in charge of the FISA court. Spy on Trump, spy on Carter Page, spy on his top people. We've got to get dirt on Trump. Which, by the way, completely illegal. Illegal. Now, by the way, so in case if you're wondering why Roberts is now lighting his own credibility on fire, why he's destroying his credibility to defend Bosberg from impeachment investigations, now you know why. Because they're both thick as thieves. Bosberg has been out to get Trump. He's part of the anti-Trump so-called resistance, that criminal cabal going back at least a decade. And Roberts, through the, as a puppet master in the shadows, has been helping to be one of the key players organizing this attack on Trump and this resistance to Trump to sabotage and destroy him. That's why now he's putting everything on the line to defend Bosberg. God forbid, don't impeach him, because if you impeach Bosberg, it goes all the way up to Roberts. Now, the question that needs to be asked, how does a guy like Bosberg, whose daughter is making money, whose firm is making money off of preventing mass deportations, including those of mass convicted felons, convicted criminal illegal aliens, how is this guy allowed to make decisions affecting the president of the United States and deporting 300 of the most dangerous, deranged, vile criminals who are part of a designated foreign terrorist organization? And he's able to bring the president to his knees? How is this not a screaming conflict of interest? And number two, how is this guy allowed to be put on the FISA court to spy on Trump illegally? And we're supposed to defer to his rulings? And Trump is not even allowed to call for his impeachment after this guy is clearly out to destroy him and committing crimes to do so in the process? And finally, Chief Justice John Roberts. So you were the one that were putting all these anti-never Trumpers on the FISA court to conduct illegal secret surveillance of Trump and his people. They're blackmailing him. Roberts is a Judas. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Let me ask all of you, it is a showdown at high noon between Chief Justice John Roberts and, frankly, now a rogue judiciary, or to be more accurate, rogue judges who are now tearing apart Trump's authority. It is Trump versus Roberts. Who do you think will win, and who do you side with in this conflict? Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Arthur.
Well, when Obama was president, the way that he handled things before the Congress, I found very interesting. It was the first time anybody did things the way he did. He basically, every time he was called on the carpet, I was brought up, and I think the rest of us were brought up to believe that if you were called before Congress for misconduct, it was important, and you needed lawyers, and you had to be, it was something that mattered. But all that changed with Obama. He gave everybody the finger. He says, "What are you going to do about it?" And that's the same way that Biden handled anything. Anytime he was given a judicial directive, he said he gave them the middle finger. And Trump hasn't learned from that. So basically, all he needs to do, because everything gets to the Supreme Court if it's a matter of decision or conflict. Now, either we bring it or they bring it. If we bring it, what does that mean? We waste our time, and in the meantime, we're doing what they want us to do. But getting nowhere, and we're violating the oath that we took. And the oath that we took is to protect the people of the country, and to carry out the will of the people. Something that these people are not doing. And the fact that they were not elected, what do we listen to them for? We should ignore them totally. I remember when Trump turned around and fired Comey. He fired Comey after Rosenstein sent him a letter telling him to fire, a 2-page letter telling him why he should fire Comey. And after he fired Comey, he turned around and hired a special counsel to investigate why he fired Comey. And I said on another show, I said, what is Trump paying this for? He should fire a special counsel because he did what he was told. And Trump should learn from this. When you're in the right, you do what's right. Never mind what these other people are telling you. They are in the wrong. And they are not judges. And they shouldn't be listened to. When you're doing the right thing, just continue to do the right thing. And while he has the power, and it's a short window, he needs to turn around and clean up this election fraud. He's finding out, everywhere we're finding out about it, and he needs the Attorney General to turn around and get a bunch of lawyers and go after these people. They will turn around and they will appoint. This is the only chance we're ever going to have while we have actual people in there who are representing this country. And this is the first time in my lifetime that I have actually seen a government that is for the people. Can you imagine a person like, we're lucky that we have somebody like Elon Musk. I mean, this man is a god. What he's given up and what he has done for this nation, and the fact that he's being insulted for it, and he's being insulted for it by the media. If this was another time in history, they would be erecting statues to this guy. I have never seen a man do what this guy has done for this country, and what he has sacrificed for this country, and the kind of scum that goes after him, the kind of people that can do this to a man like that. It disgusts me. No way.
No, I agree, Arthur, on every level what he's done for this country. But here, let's just take yesterday. I mean, helping to save those two astronauts, Butch and Sonny. And he's practically single-handedly resurrected the American space program after Obama destroyed it, gutted it, basically, just eliminated it. And the private sector, led by Elon, with some government funding, but for the most part, the private sector, led by Elon, has now resurrected our space program. And, and we're doing miracles in space. I could just go on and on and on. He's an American hero. There's no question. And the left is out to, did you see this? A Tesla dealership in Vegas, because now there's terrorism being unleashed against Elon and Tesla. A Tesla dealership in Vegas was torched, lit on fire. They're going around now lighting Teslas on fire. They're burning them. It's arson after arson attack after arson attack. And so there was a vicious attack at a Tesla dealership. Tesla after Tesla after Tesla just lit on fire. Because the left is saying we've got to take out Elon. We've got to bankrupt him. We've got to destroy his business. And if you see him, kill him. Literally, they've put a bounty on his head. They want to assassinate Elon Musk. And here, look, I got more stuff that it just keeps breaking all the time. Now you've got judges going after Trump. Pretty soon he's not going to be able to do a thing. Now you've got judges coming after Trump, this broke, saying that he cannot get rid of USAID. That he can't even cut programs in USAID. So pretty soon he won't. By the way, he can't even lay people off. You have another judge that ruled he can't even, literally, he can't even fire people in the federal bureaucracy. He's got to rehire all of the thousands of people that he and Elon fired. So, really, what's the point of having elections? Really, an election means nothing. You elect a president, it doesn't matter. Because district judges now, low-level judges now believe they have more power and they can overrule the president of the United States. You want to talk about a threat to quote-unquote democracy. This is it. As always, Arthur, thank you for that call. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Thank you for taking the call, Jeff. Chief Justice Roberts didn't have a problem when they impeached Donald J. Trump twice. He didn't have much to say when they repeatedly were calling for Chief Justice Clarence Thomas to be impeached. But one of your previous callers touched on this, but it was mentioned on your show several years ago on this adoption issue, which at that time was an immigration issue on how we got those children to the United States. That could be what has happened here. If you remember, Chief Justice Roberts initially turned down Obamacare 2 years later when it came up. That's when he approved it, and that's when it was mentioned on your show. And I haven't heard it again until the gentleman just called about an hour ago and mentioned it again. There's no doubt that they have something on Chief Justice Roberts. There is no doubt about it. What he should have done was he should have told his judge, if you don't understand what the executive branch's powers are, then you should step down. Any judge that doesn't understand that should step down. What Trump should say to Chief Justice Roberts is that maybe you should be impeached if you don't tell these people what to do. But what I would do if I was President Trump.
CJ, do me a favor. We're up against a hard break. Can you hang on? I want to come right back to CJ. CJ saying here is if I was Trump, this is what I would do. Let me ask you, in this battle of wills between Trump and Chief Justice Roberts, who do you side with? 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is clearly now a watershed moment in Trump's young presidency in his second term. You now have lawfare. It's a different kind of lawfare, but it's clearly lawfare now being waged by these rogue, out of control, activist left-wing judges. And one of the biggest is Judge Bosberg. He now has blocked Trump from deporting, listen to this, foreign terrorists, Tren de Aragua, the most ruthless, violent, brutal criminal gang in the entire Western Hemisphere. And he's now saying, even though they're here illegally, even though they've committed the most heinous crimes, including, as I've mentioned on multiple occasions, they were the ones responsible, their members, for the murder of Laken Riley, for then the gang rape of a 12-year-old girl, Joycelyn Nungare, and then they killed her. In fact, they cut her body up to pieces. They mutilated the body. That, no, these people should not be deported. Even though they're a threat to national security, they're a threat, obviously, to public safety, to American citizens, to law-abiding citizens. They have been rampaging in our country now for years. It doesn't matter. Bosberg says they must stay, and they now say, this judge now claims he has more authority over national security, immigration, and American foreign policy than the president himself. Now, I'm telling you, if this is allowed to stand, Trump's presidency is finished. And potentially the presidency itself as an institution is finished. And I just want to, I know CJ's on, I want to go back to CJ, but I want to read something that Stephen Miller, one of Trump's top advisors, said on X, quote, there are nearly 700 unelected district court judges. If the most extremist of these judges on any given day decides he is in charge of the executive branch, then Article 2 of the Constitution, democracy, and government itself cannot function. And as most of you know, but just for the few of you that don't, Article 2 is literally that section in the Constitution that created or describes and defines the executive branch. So basically, we don't have an executive branch. If this is allowed to stand, the executive branch is neutered. It's finished. So democracy can't function. Our government can't function. The presidency, the executive branch itself can't function. And in another post by Miller, because he was on fire, this is what Miller wrote, and he's completely right. He said, look, I want you to think about this. Quote, it's the equivalent of Marxist university professors being able to unilaterally veto, edit, or override the exercise of presidential authority. Now, this is what's at stake. And they're willing now to destroy the republic, destroy our Constitution, destroy, frankly, and I know we're a republic, but democracy itself, because, as many of you are pointing out on the text line, what's the point of having elections? No, really, seriously, what's the point? If an election means nothing, if a popular mandate means nothing, because all these district judges, here, another one, here's another ruling. Remember, Trump banned, now clearly, he's the commander-in-chief. He can decide and set standards for the military. Well, remember, he banned transgender members from being in the military? Nope. A radical left-wing rogue activist judge has now said that that ban has been overturned indefinitely. So whether the commander-in-chief wants it, whether the defense secretary wants it or not, The U.S. military now must allow for transgender members to serve and to give them taxpayer-funded sex change operations. So they're taking his entire agenda and they're destroying it piece by piece by piece. So the counter argument is, but let the process play itself out. Jeff, we have to respect and revere the process, Jeff. The process. A year? 2 years? 3 years? 4 years? You know how long these things take as they wind their way to the Supreme Court? If the Supreme Court decides to even take them, you know, they punt on many of these decisions or on many of these rulings or issues. There's no guarantee the Supreme Court's going to take any of this up. So we're going to allow an out-of-control judiciary, and the executive and the legislative branch is just what? Just supposed to stand back and say, okay. Okay. No. I'm sorry. That doesn't work that way. It's not what our founding fathers intended. It's not what was done in the past, and it's certainly not what should happen now. Agree, disagree, for nothing. 10, 12, 15 years, said that January 6th, was an insurrection incited by Trump and Trump supporters. This guy's not a judge. He's a rabid anti-Trump partisan and Democrat activist masquerading as a judge. This guy's a complete disgrace. He's out to destroy the J6ers. He helped essentially to free Ray Epps. He was secretly spying on Trump. And now his daughter as well, he and his daughter, are now doing everything in their power to keep MS-13, Trender Aragua, and foreign terrorists on American soil. He's a traitor. He's a traitor. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Here it is, from a foreigner. Okay? From a foreigner. And I think really now crystallizes the issue that is in front of Trump and, frankly, our country and our republic. Jeff, forgive me. Oh, by the way, 703. Jeff, you can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 703. Jeff, forgive me. I am Spanish, so I don't always understand the United States and how it works. But here's the question that I have. If Trump was elected as president, then why do judges who were never elected have more power than he does? How is it a democracy if the man who was voted in by the people can't govern according to what he promised he'd do? The judges weren't elected, but they have more power than the man who was. Can you please make sense of it for me? I can't. I mean, in all honesty, 703, I can't. The only answer I can give you is this is not how our framers intended it. This is not how our founding fathers intended it. And this has to stop. We cannot allow these out of control little dictators, and that's what these rogue judges are. They're little wannabe dictators. Overrule the will of the people, overrule the election of November 2024, and overrule the president of the United States. Because if they do end up succeeding, we don't have a democracy, we don't have a republic, we don't frankly have a functioning government anymore. Agree, disagree. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff.
Hi,
our
Dan.
democracy, our constitutional republic is under attack right here. And Joseph McCarthy talked about this several times, how the communists had infiltrated every branch of government. Okay? Now, that being said, you got three liberal judges that slapped an injunction on birthright citizenship, okay, in Mass, Washington, Maryland, And the fourth in New Hampshire is a guy I talked about before, a Bush judge, Joseph LaPlante, that was put in by the Bushes in 2007. Okay? Now, you got corrupt politicians, national media, and corrupt judges all linked with George Soros network trying to stop the President Trump from deporting illegal criminals. And these people, okay, your caller yesterday, and Jeff, I've got to disagree one time with you. I got to tell you, John from Walpole is the caller of the week. He blew this thing open yesterday when he started talking about John Roberts, who appointed James Bosberg to the FISA court. Okay, and James Bosberg has ties to the Flower Group with his daughter. Okay, and that connects. You know who's involved in that is Allegra Chapman. Okay, and Kristen Ford, and who are heavily tied to AOC. Okay, and Jeff, you're always talking about David Axelrod, he's heavily involved in the Flower Group. Okay, so you're talking about the Uni-party, Jeff. When we're talking about David Axelrod, he's also tied to the McCain Global Leaders and McCain Institute. He's an advisor, okay? And guess who did speaking engagements with David Axelrod at universities in 2021? Ari Fleischer. Yeah, Ari Fleischer. Let's say it again, okay? This guy's another...
Bushy. Another Bushy. And Dan, just to reinforce what you're trying to say about the Uni-party, take this guy Bosberg. And there was a caller yesterday that opened my eyes to this. And then I looked it up, and it's, of course, completely true. Bosberg, yes, he's an Obama appointee to the district court. It was a promotion. But he was originally appointed by George W. Bush. Bosberg was appointed by George W. Bush to the Superior Court. So, yes, he's an Obamaite, but he's also a Bushy. And what he really is, and you're dead on, he's nothing more than a shill and a mouthpiece for the globalists. And they want Trump stopped dead in his tracks. And what they've realized is they've lost in the court of public opinion. They lost in the election. They don't have power in Congress anymore. They're slipping power away from the Supreme Court, because I know Amy Coney Barrett has been a real disappointment, but still, it is some kind of a 5-4 majority for conservatives, weak as Barrett is. And so they've now activated Roberts. Roberts now is stepping up in order to try to sabotage and jeopardize and essentially now bring crashing down Trump's presidency. And I'm telling you, I think Roberts eventually is going to have to resign. I think what he's done now is he has done immense damage to the dignity, to the respect, to the independence of the entire federal judiciary by standing up for an obvious scumbag. And that's what Bosberg is, an obvious radical, fanatical scumbag and corrupt scumbag like Bosberg. So while his daughter is raking in cash at a group, by the way, she's a key fundraiser, where they're raking in cash, saying, don't you worry, we're not going to have any deportations under Trump, even convicted felons. We don't care, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, you name it. You butcher people, you rape people, you traffic children, you kidnap children, you weapons trafficking, fentanyl trafficking. We don't care. You're not going to be deported from the United States. Why? My daddy is on the district court. My daddy is a judge. My daddy is going to block Trump. So this guy is Bosberg is as dirty as they come. And, Sandy made a brilliant point while we were off air. She said, impeachment takes time. Impeachment is time consuming. She goes, when it comes to Bosberg, one of the easiest ways to get him off is push for him to be recused. Because the conflict of interest is so obvious. His bias is so obvious. his unprofessional, corrupt partisanship is so obvious. She goes, you can easily get a hearing, which can go quite quick, and get this guy recused from the case. Now, however you do it, door 1, door 2, door 3, you got to start going after these guys. Because if you don't go after these rogue judges, they are going to destroy Trump and bring him to his knees. 33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, what a quote-unquote coincidence that almost every judge ruling against Trump was appointed by a Democrat. It's almost as if they're not judges at all. Just Democrat activists in black robes. Bingo. And that's exactly what they are, my friend. Exactly what they are. This is another one from 617. Jeff, if Tren de Aragua is forced to stay in the country because of activist judges, I propose we send them to Martha's Vineyard. Do I have anyone who seconds this motion? I second it. I definitely second it. And this is from a former law enforcement official, a really, really good police officer. He's now out of the business, but he sent me this text maybe a couple minutes ago. Jeff, on a side note, it's funny how when a large number of illegals landed in Martha's Vineyard last year, the liberals went nuts and had them immediately removed. Now they're up in arms about President Trump removing murderous criminals and gangbangers from our communities. Funny how liberal hypocrisy works, isn't it? You see, you send them to the vineyard and they're out within 24 hours. But when they're rampaging in Aurora, or remember what they did up in New Jersey, was a massacre, a mass rape of, 4 teenage girls. And then they murdered them, chopped up their bodies, and threw them into a mass grave. So when they commit the most heinous, barbaric, savage crimes, whether it be in New Jersey, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Dallas, then you can't deport them. Then they have to stay, but just not where the Moonbats live. 617-266-6868 is the number. Scott in Revere. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Jeff, I love you in a sexual way, my friend.
Thank you, Scott. Buddy, what do you make of all this, my friend?
All right, Jeff. All right, listen, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. We have 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Notice judicial is on the bottom. Executive runs the country. Legislative makes the laws. Judicial enforces the laws. They do not make law. So, if Trump is listening, you got to know your history. The judicial branch has no power at all over the executive branch. And then I'm going to throw this. This is the cherry on the sundae. The Supreme Court is an absolute joke. Nobody's listening to them. The Biden administration, the senile buffoon in the automatic pen, did they listen to the Supreme Court at all? No. So, what are you listening to? And where is our cabinet? Why are you on news answering questions? Where's the people you hired? Let them answer the questions.
You know, Scott, I'm with you. I'm with you all the way, brother. Scott, I've got to ask you this question, okay? Really, it's a double-barreled question. Number one, why would someone like Roberts, but not just Roberts, this judge, Bosberg, you've got Democrats from AOC to Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders, I could go on, that are siding with Tren de Aragua, MS-13, like literally foreign terrorists, transnational criminal gangs of the worst kind, over protecting law-abiding American citizens. It would be the equivalent, Scott, I've got to ask you, it would literally be the equivalent if Judge Bosberg said Trump does not have the authority to deport, say, 250 members of ISIS or 250 members of Al-Qaeda. Known butchers, people, known murderers, known terrorists, and saying, no, even though they're in the country illegally, even though they've been convicted of the most heinous crimes imaginable, even though they're designated as terrorists, no, we're ordering you don't have the right to deport them or get them out of our country. They have to stay. Why are they so determined, seriously, to protect the worst of the worst? Literally, the most evil scumbags, violent criminals, sick, evil, sadistic people on the face of the earth. Why is it just because it's Trump derangement syndrome? They just hate Trump, so they'll oppose him on no matter what? Or is there something even more sick and sinister in your view, Scott?
This is what it all that I think boils down to. It's pretty simple. Trump has a mandate. We gave him the mandate. The liberals, that's all they have left. And not only that, they literally have 15% of the country. That's it. So what do they have left besides illegals? No one agrees with them on anything. Now, my biggest question is, where are all the Republican appointees? Where's the Trump appointees? Where's Barrett? Where's all these people Trump and the Republicans appointed? Where are those judges? Why are they not stepping up and saying, well, there's no way, why aren't they against these other judges? I don't understand. Why are they not saying anything? Why are they so quiet?
I've been asking that question my whole life. Not just regarding Trump, around outrage after outrage, scandal after scandal, betrayal after betrayal, how these yellow-livered, gutless, Vichy Republicans, I call them, all they know how to do is surrender. That's all they know how to do, is wave the white flag of surrender. They're useless. They're just absolutely useless. They don't do a thing. It's shameful. And look, Scott, I said it earlier. I read a really good text message, but I want to repeat it. Why is Trump doing all the heavy lifting? Why is he always alone out there fighting on our behalf? Again and again and again. Why is he the only one calling for this judge to be impeached? Why is he the one now being attacked by Roberts? Seriously. Why isn't Mike Johnson standing with him side by side? John Thune? Why don't all the Republicans in Congress stand up and say, we side with the president, and either you, Roberts, do something about this judge, or we're going to send articles of impeachment? Like, it may take a year, but we're going to impeach this guy, and we're going to make an example out of him. And so other judges will not do this. Instead, it's always Trump alone. Always. Scott, thank you very much for that call. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Okay, this is their last stand. Democrats now use rogue judges to break Trump's presidency. 9 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, best audience in the business. I know I say it all the time. Jeff, you sound like a tape, but it's true. I'm telling you, it's true. So what else? I mean, if it's true, it's true. You got to say it. I want to read a text, and I think it really captures the essence now of the debate and of the constitutional legal crisis that I believe these activist rogue judges have now plunged the country into. And whether Trump likes it or not, he's the victim of lawfare again. As I've been saying all show, it's a different kind of lawfare. It's not them trying to bankrupt him or take him off the ballot or put him behind bars or jail him. But it's to literally sabotage and cripple, kneecap his presidency. And this is from 781. Jeff. Now, another district court judge has just ordered the U.S. military to continue enlisting mentally delusional transgender troops and justifying her ruling, Jeff, I kid you not, by quoting the musical Hamilton. And this is the key. Jeff, we either have a presidency or we have a rule by 677 gavel-wielding dictators. The Supreme Court must put these judges in place. In other words, do we have judicial tyranny or do we have a constitutional republic? That's now the issue. And I want to stress this to you. As an historian, the natural state of the world is not Republican self-government. We're the exception. We're not the rule. For thousands and thousands of years of history, it's either a king or a dictator or a ruler or a group of people, an oligarchy. In Europe, it was aristocrats. Basically a self-anointed elite. People who gave themselves privilege and power over everyone else, especially the people. And that's how they ran Europe literally for thousands of years. And if you look at how judges, I just find this incredible. Look at the way judges in our society are revered because they have a black robe. And suddenly their rulings are like carved in stone. And their words have this kind of mystical power and authority. And notice, you have to comply. You have to comply. You must comply. You must comply. How dare you? You're not going to comply with this no-name judge on some dinky little court? How dare you? It's like you're not going to bend the knee to Sir John Arthur of Engelrot. Like, how dare you not recognize this aristocrat for the superior human being that he is? That's exactly what they're trying to do now. They're trying now to anoint a group of Democratic activists using the name of a judge who wear a black robe and say they can overrule a president, they can overrule the people, they can overrule elections, they can literally run roughshod over the entire Constitution and the entire separation of powers. It's no different than what aristocrats have done for thousands of years. Except then they claim divine right. God gave them special powers. Now they're claiming some special right in the Constitution which doesn't exist. And look how people instinctively defer to judges as if they're all powerful, all omnipotent, all knowing. Most of these judges are lawyers or political activists who are literally making it up as they go along. They're violating their oath. They're abusing their power. And, here, I just want to read to you something that I got from a very good friend of mine. And I think it really sums up exactly what's going on. And I really respect this person, longtime friend, huge supporter of the show. And he sent this, in fact, to me last night, and he was really pained about it. He says, I'm seeing what they're doing to Trump, what they're doing to his presidency. They're starting to slowly reduce it to rubble. They're blocking every aspect now of his agenda. They're overruling him, and they're making it impossible for him to act as commander-in-chief and as the president of the United States. And so, from the heart, this is what he sent to me. And I think he's dead on. He said, Jeff, I'm lying here in bed and I can't sleep. And I have to ask you, as a former professor, as someone who knows American history and American constitutional history, if these rogue judges can overrule the President of the United States and block his every move, why bother to have elections? If these judges were all appointed, why can't they be unappointed? And the basis would be a constitutional issue and not a personal issue that Trump has with people getting in his way. He is now unable to do the job the people elected him to do. And we are now in a full-blown constitutional crisis. And so I have to ask you, how would Professor Kuhner fix this? Well, two options. And I think this is it. Jeff, we need a solution. What is the solution? There are two solutions. Okay, two. One has already been proposed by Newt Gingrich. And this is what he wrote. And I want everybody to listen. Because if you want to solve it, this is how you do it. Chief Justice Roberts, this is now Newt on X. Chief Justice Roberts and his colleagues, meaning the Supreme Court, should accept immediate review on any number of emergency petitions filed by the Justice Department on behalf of the president, i.e. President Trump, and the American people, and reverse the outrageous district courts immediately. But do so in very broad language that directs the district court judges to stop meddling in the operation of the executive branch, where under the separation of powers doctrine, they have no jurisdiction and their orders will not be enforced. In other words, it's time now for Roberts to stop defending Bosberg and to start overruling these decisions by these horrible judges. And the Supreme Court now needs to police the judiciary. And how would you do that? As Gingrich outlined, say, look, here's what we're going to do. Every time now a lower level judge issues an injunction or a temporary restraining order or tries to block Trump on transgenders in the military or on USAID or on DOGE or on firing people or on deporting criminal illegal aliens like Trender Aragua, immediately we're going to take an emergency petition to the Supreme Court. In other words, it's not going to go through the appellate process and go on for months and years. No, within 2 days, bang, it's right in front of us at the Supreme Court. So we're going to be ruling on this immediately. So you're not going to block the president and paralyze him indefinitely. But along with that, tell these lower level judges, I want you to know, knock it off. You're not the commander in chief. You can't decide on foreign aid. You can't decide on deportations. You can't decide on who he hires and who he fires. In other words, the judicial branch cannot usurp the executive branch. And we're going to smack you down. And the more we smack you down, the more humiliated you're going to get. In other words, put them back within their boundaries, their constitutionally delineated boundaries. So, the Supreme Court could settle this like this. I'm telling you, like this. There's also another, and this is the one I've been favoring now for at least 20 years. And Sandy actually touched on it during the break. The one that can break the power of judicial tyranny, and remember, of all the three branches, it's the strongest branch because it's closest to the people and it has what? The power of the purse. It controls money. You control money, you control everything. Congress is the one. I've been saying this for a long time. If people don't like Supreme Court rulings, for example, and they go, well, why is the Supreme Court? They're legislating from the bench. The legislative branch is Congress. Take that power back. It would take a few weeks. Congress could pass a law that would literally order the judiciary to go back to its proper constitutionally delineated authority and boundaries. That's what they could easily do. In other words, say, no, Congress, you can't legislate from the bench. No, you can't tell the president who he can deport and not deport. No, you can't tell him who he can fire and not fire. In other words, Congress can put the judiciary back in its proper place and in its proper authority. And then say, and if you keep violating, we're good. And this is what Thomas Jefferson famously proposed. Just defund them. Power of the purse. Look it up, please. Don't take my word for it. Nowhere in the Constitution it says you have to have a Supreme Court. It doesn't say you have to have appellate courts. It doesn't say you have to have district courts. It doesn't say you have to have superior courts. That's something that we have built up over many, many years. But that's not technically in the Constitution. In other words, Jefferson said this, if they get too strong in the judicial branch, Congress must step in and defund them. You can defund judges. You can defund the entire appellate division. In other words, just wipe it out. Just say, you know what? If none of you get paid, you don't have a job. You don't have a job, you're out. So you could literally defund and eliminate the entire district appellate. So you can wipe out these different levels of the judicial branch. Now, would there be a massive firestorm? Yes. Would the media go apoplectic? Yes. Would the Democrats scream bloody murder? Yes. Would they take a big hit, from the Democrat media complex? Yes. But is it 1,000% constitutionally kosher? You better believe it. Does Congress have the right to do it? You better believe it. So Congress can slay this beast anytime it wants. But you gotta have balls. You gotta have courage. You gotta have heart. You gotta have patriotism and bravery. You have to have leadership. I don't see that from Mike Johnson, or I don't see that from John Thune. But these are two proposals, both from Gingrich, and by the way, this one is not unique to me. Many constitutionalists have argued my position as well. And Jefferson did, James Madison, the founder of our Constitution, did, Hamilton did, John Adams did. I mean, this goes back right to our framers. In other words, Congress can settle this anytime it wants. But it's up to Congress. Okay, joining me now, as she always does at this time, and I'm so looking forward to what she has to say, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, full disclosure, my wonderful wife. Grace, I've got to ask you, Roberts has rebuked Trump for daring to deport illegal aliens, Trenderagua, to Venezuela, and for calling for the impeachment of that out-of-control rogue judge. Are you with Trump or are you with Roberts on this one?
Jeff, I am with Trump, and I'm so proud of him. There is some moments like this that show why his base is so strongly in favor of him. This is an example. You now have courts that are visibly and recurringly siding with criminals. The courts let the criminals out. And it's really foolish of the Democrats to constantly be associated with this theme. You know, when you think about what has happened recently, the Laken-Riley Act, what was that act really all about? It was telling the Department of Homeland Security, when you catch a criminal, keep the criminal. And the rest of us are like, well, we thought that's what law enforcement was supposed to do in the first place. But no, now Congress has to pass an act to tell law enforcement what we all think that's what you're supposed to be doing anyways. And look at what happened when Trump gave his joint address. We were all heartbroken when we saw the mom of Laken-Riley and the sister. But the Dems couldn't even stand up to clap. So what the public sees again and again is the Democratic Party and the courts, they are on the wrong side of the law. They are on the side of criminal behavior. I mean, that's what common sense shows us when we analyze this.
You're right, obviously, but let me just push it a little bit further, if you don't mind. Why would Roberts go out of his way to defend Bosberg? Why would he side with Bosberg and fundamentally with Trent Aragua? Why would Roberts do that? When AOC called for Clarence Thomas to be impeached, he said nothing. When the Democrats called for the Supreme Court to be packed, he said nothing. So I can cite you example after example. But now, this is the hill he's willing to die on, to rebuke Trump in order to defend, of all people, Bosberg, and one of the most outrageous, unconstitutional rulings maybe in American history. What's your theory?
Well, Jeff, we've talked about this many times, that the behavior of the Chief Justice doesn't quite add up. And so I believe that he's compromised. I agree with you very often when you say that and when other commentators say that. He's got to be compromised because he's not doing his basic job. The basic job is to uphold the law. The only thing we see is that Donald Trump is willing to uphold the law, and the system all around him is failing to do that.
Grace, why do so many people, and I have to say, and you know I love the guy, but even Trump in that interview with Laura Ingraham, when she said, well, will you comply, even with Bosberg? And he said, oh yeah. Oh, he attacked him. He called him to be impeached. He says these judges have to be stopped, and he's obviously very angry, and I support him. But even Trump is like, oh, you know, I don't want to ignore a judge. I don't want to double cross a judge. Why have we taken on this reverential, almost, deification of judges, where apparently their writ is carved in stone? It's almost like a new aristocracy. What's your theory on that?
Well, I think that Trump knew that if he said anything other than that, it would be that would make the news. But what the public is really seeing is that Trump has no respect for these judges and is going to defy them in his deeds. But he didn't actually want to say that. So he's the one that is the quintessential, breaker of things that are not working. And this is one of those things. This reverence for judges, he doesn't have it. He was a victim of how poorly the judges behaved. So he knows that a flawed judge can trample on an individual's rights. Now, this is what happened to him. As an individual, his rights were being trampled by an administration that was out of control. When the Democrats are on all these programs on TV saying the system of checks and balances is in jeopardy. Listen, the system of checks and balances is there to make sure the majority doesn't trample on the rights of an individual or of the minority. And what we're seeing is the opposite now. When you have these criminals trampling on the rights of individuals or on the rights of minorities, on the rights of kids, then the system of checks and balances is not working the way that it should. So Trump is doing everything he can, indeed, to defy this nonsense. I think he's going to ignore them, but he knew if he said anything otherwise, that would make all the headlines and it would cause unnecessary blowback. I think he's been formidable on this issue. There is no tougher person on the border, on law and order, and on crime and punishment than this current president. On this metric, he is outstanding. And I think he's doing an absolutely outstanding job in every sense in terms of defying the nonsense that he hears. And actually, this time, he was quite shrewd about it. Sometimes I say, I wish he would just say less. This is one of those examples where he didn't step in a trap. It would have been a trap to say anything other than what he said.
30 seconds. Are we in a democratic crisis? That's what Stephen Miller is saying. That's what many Trump in his inner circle are saying. If these district judges get their way, democracy's gone. Article 2 of the Constitution is gone. The executive branch is now neutered. It will be the end of functioning government itself. You will have 677 little dictators and presidents. What say you?
Exactly, you will. And what you have is what we currently have now, which is this constant stagnation. Nothing moves forward. Nothing gets done. And one of the reasons that people elected somebody like Trump is we're sick of it. We want action. We want people that cut through all this nonsense. They're just trying to slow Trump down, to just drag him into quicksand so that he doesn't get the results for the people that we know he can get. Think about the opposite. If he gets the results, it proves that his agenda works.
Grace, as always, fire, fire, fire. If they don't stop him, Trump gets his agenda passed, and it will succeed. And then the Democrats and liberals go down. This is political war masquerading as judges. 617-266-6868 is the number. Roberta in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Roberta, and welcome.
Good morning, Kuhner.
Hi, Roberta.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So, first of all, I have 2 points to make. I agree with everything that you and your wife have mentioned this morning. I just want to add 2 additional points to the whole conversation. One is Trump is falling into a trap if he obeys this lower court judge. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen this movie before. This is exactly what played out in Brazil, where President Bolsonaro was effectively replaced by judicial court system. And they effectively stopped him from being able to govern the country. Number 2, my second point is that regarding this whole aspect, the whole case of getting the illegals out of the country, the Supreme Court has already ruled on it, and there's a something called the Alien Enemy Act, and there's a case that happened in 1948 called Ludicky versus Watkins, and you guys can look it up. So basically, the Supreme Court already ruled on it, and I quote what they said is, these are matters of political judgment for which judges have neither technical competence nor official responsibility. So that's that. There's already precedent from the Supreme Court that these lower court judges do not have the right to stop any of this or to impose anything on the executive leader. So these are my 2 points. Thank you.
Roberta, if you don't mind me asking, this is what I find truly mind-boggling. I can't wrap my mind around it because you're completely right on both your points. And if I said it this way, I think it would strike people a little bit more because it's Tren de Aragua, it's MS-13, and the Tren de Aragua has now been designated a foreign terrorist organization, but they look at them more as criminals than terrorists. So let's make it as simple and clear as possible. If President Trump and the DOJ rounded up, along with the FBI, 250 ISIS terrorists convicted of, terrorism, of murder, of rape, of weapons trafficking, drug trafficking. And he said, they're criminals, they're illegals, they're in our country illegally. I'm kicking them back. whatever, I don't care, Syria, Iraq, wherever they're from, Afghanistan, I'm going to deport them. And if a judge that no one had ever heard of before comes in and says, nope, you're not going to do that. No, you don't have the authority to do it. I have to give my stamp of approval. You can't send them anywhere until I say it's kosher, and you may not even be allowed to send them, because I think sending people back to their home countries is inhumane. The attitude of the American public would be immediately, who the hell does this judge think he is or she is? Like, who died and made them president? They would say it's blatantly unconstitutional, blatant overreach, blatantly illegal. And if the president wanted to just ignore him, they would say, bravo, ignore him. Hell, let the judge take it to the Supreme Court. Go, Donald, deport ISIS. Yet the moment you mention migrants or illegal or undocumented immigrant or whatever, the moment it has anything to do with the border, all of a sudden, it's like, boo. It's like, oh, what? Oh, no. A judge has stopped me? Oh, a judge has issued a ruling? Oh, then everything has to grind to a halt. Am I wrong, Roberta?
That's exactly the perception that the media wants to put out there for the people, right? They want to say that these illegal aliens coming in, that they're not necessarily, that there's no invasion taking place, that there's no bigger plan that wants to replace the people of this country and replace the culture in this country. So the media wants to make everybody believe that this is okay. And it's not. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. So Trump cannot fall into this trap. It's not just because it's illegal and unconstitutional, but also because if he falls into this trap and if he accepts the order of a lower court judge, that will not stop. Other judges are going to come out of the woodwork every single day with all kinds of crazy rulings to stop him from moving and making any decisions into any aspect of his government. And they are going to effectively nullify his entire government. So he needs to stop this now before this gets out of hand. Brilliant.
Roberta, thank you very much for that call. She's 1,000, not 100, 1,000% correct. This is going to effectively paralyze Trump and his entire presidency. And that's the intent. That's literally the goal. George in Somerville. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, George.
So I'm calling about him saying on TV is not defy. The thing is, looking at history when I was in school, Andrew Jackson, I think, said something about the Supreme Court. When they ruled against them, he said they got the decision, let them enforce it.
Yes.
And thing is, they never enforce it because they can't enforce it. Andrew Jackson is the president. He has the authority to enforce within his administration, just like President Trump. And Laura Ingraham kind of made a mistake there. She kept saying defy. No, she should have said ignore. The president has the authority to do what he wants when it comes to deportation and the administration of the executive branch. One idea I have is the district courts and the appellate courts are all Article I courts. The only thing Congress has to do is pass a law. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over anything to do with the executive branch, and that nullifies everything. The Supreme Court doesn't have to take any cases. So these idiots that want to file cases against the president, gets to the Supreme Court, they say, we're not taking the case. It dies. It's over.
Oh, that's a great idea. George, I love it. Look, in other words, Congress is going to have to act. Like, there's no getting around it. In fact, there's a very prominent constitutionalist lawyer who's a really good ally of President Trump. He's a very smart guy. His name is Mike Davis. And he pretty much said, you know, what I had said just before Grace called, where he said, look, the Supreme Court can either police the judiciary or have Congress step in. If Roberts won't police the judiciary, then let Congress police the judiciary. In other words, if Roberts won't, the Congress needs to act. And you're completely right. Congress can stop this in a second. In a second. So, George, thank you very much for that call. Look, imagine just we're attacked. Okay? Whatever. Al-Qaeda attacks us again. Just humor me. And Trump orders a military response. And some judge says, no, you can't do that. Is Trump supposed to say, oh my God, well, I can't do anything. I just been blocked by a judge. No. Ignore him. Or other words, blank off. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Roberta's call. Roberta in Woburn triggered a massive response on the text line. And by the way, everyone is confirming. Kuhner Country is saying, you know what? We wanted to double check what Roberta was saying, and they're saying she's completely correct. So listen now to this. This is from, again, you can text us 70470, 70470, 617. Jeff, Roberta is completely right. The Alien Enemies Act cannot be reviewed or regulated by any court. In fact, Megyn Kelly on her podcast quoted a specific court ruling on this matter right after World War II. Therefore, Trump can and will and should ignore all court orders about illegals being deported. Bingo. Bingo. Okay, 617. Jeff, breaking news. A federal judge, just to prove Roberta's point, has just ruled that Elon Musk has violated the Constitution for dismantling USAID and ordered that all employees be restored, that their jobs and access be restored immediately. And remember what Roberta said. That's exactly the playbook that you saw in Brazil against Bolsonaro, who was really the Trump of Brazil. They just bled him and bled him and bled him with one court order after another. And then one more. So you see now you can't even get rid of USAID. You see, I'm telling you, they're going to undo everything if they get away with it. And to show you how outrageous these judges are. Again, they're just making stuff up. Final one, 508. Jeff, the judge who ruled that disbanding USAID was unconstitutional wrote in the order that USAID was created by Congress. It was not. It was created by executive order by John F. Kennedy. 617-266-6868 is the number. So literally, they're just making stuff up. So USAID created by a president through executive order. And now a judge comes along and says, you can't fire anybody. Or you can't touch USAID, no matter how fraudulent and corrupt all of the spending that's been exposed. Congress created it. No, it was created by Kennedy by executive order. So if it's created by executive order, it can be dismantled by executive order. But again, not with this out of control judiciary. 617-266-6868. David in Boston. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
I have a question now for you in Kuhner Country.
Yes, David.
What do these anti-Trump district courts have in common with tennis courts? What do these anti-Trump district courts have in common with tennis courts where they play tennis?
I don't know, David.
Rackets.
David, if you were, that's funny. David, if you were advising Trump, what would you tell him to do right now? Should he comply with these court orders, Or should he pull an Andrew Jackson? You made your ruling, you go enforce it.
I think his policy should be what we've made up our mind about forced vac assassinations, these forced vac assassinations. Don't comply, don't comply, don't comply. Full steam forward. Just, I'm telling you, we're supposed to be a nation government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But we've lost that. Now we're a government by the lawyer judges, for the of the lawyer judges, for the lawyer judges, by the lawyer judges. We've lost, the people have lost self-governance. Now, even though we've lost it, it doesn't mean we can't get it back. But let's face reality. We've lost self-government. This is anything but a government of and by and for the people.
David, you nailed it. That's a nice way of saying judicial tyranny. But you're right. You know, it's supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's, you know, of rogue judges, by rogue judges, for rogue judges. Or of judicial activists, by judicial activists, for judicial activists. In other words, judicial tyranny. And so this is a question of Trump's presidency. It's really as fundamental as you can get. Who rules? Who ultimately runs our country? Who governs? Unelected, unaccountable judges and bureaucrats, either through judicial tyranny or the administrative state, the deep state, or we the people through our elected representatives. And the biggest one is obviously the president, Donald Trump. Who rules? Jen in Billerica. Thanks for holding, Jen, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you. I'll make this quick. I think that the judges' decisions are reckless because they may not have all the facts. They don't have clearance to receive all the information that the president does. So I would just label these decisions as reckless and unqualified. And the last thing is, I really trust in Trump 2.0. I think actions speak louder than words. And you know what? Maybe he's always two steps ahead of me. So right now, the news is not talking about Trump defying orders and all this other stuff. Right now, I mean, he's got them thinking he's complicit, but he's not going to be complicit.
Jen, if they force Trump to stop these deportations of, Trender Aragua, of MS-13, of these other really vile, barbaric, brutal, murderous gangbangers, and some of them are released back into the streets, and there's another Laken Riley, or there's another, God forbid, Joycelyn Nungare, where a young 11, 12-year-old girl is gang raped and then brutally murdered and her body is cut into pieces, mutilated. Should these judges be to blame? Should they be held criminally responsible? If they're going to keep these people here and prevent the president from keeping us safe, then should they be held accountable for their own decisions and for their own actions?
Oh, 100%, but let's put it on them. I have yet to see them take action and stop him. So it's now, I think Trump's president, and I really think he's got the authority and the power this term to have his achievements that he wants. And I don't think they have it in them to stop him. I would like to see them try, and I think a lot of America would.
Jen, thank you very much for that call. In other words, just, sure, of course, I'm complying, of course I'm going to comply. And you just keep going. Just keep going, Donald. Keep going. Dan in Needham, thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dan. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I just, I'm probably the last caller, listened for a little while. I don't recall the amount of disrespect to the president when Biden was the president. There seems to be this weird. I just don't understand how you guys can put all your faith in this one guy who's hired this.
Dan, I'm up against the break. Please, I'd like to continue with you. Dan, hang on. I'm up against the hard break. We're going to go right back to Dan and Needham. Don't touch that dial. WRKO. Let's go right back to Dan in Needham. Dan, you were making the point that you didn't see this kind of opposition from the judiciary when Biden was in office, and then we got cut off. So please pick up where you left off.
No, it wasn't that he didn't get pushback. He clearly got pushback. For instance, I mean, this is just one case where the Supreme Court ruled against him as far as eliminating student loan debt. And in many cases, and most cases, a president understands that the checks and balances mean that he or she abides by the rulings of the judiciary. This doesn't seem to be the case with supporters of Trump. I'm not sure why. One of the reasons might be that, 60 out of 62 cases that he brought for the election in 2020 were completely thrown out. That might be something. But really, the problem that I think your listeners who are working people like me should watch out for is that his hired henchman, Mr. Musk, is going after Social Security and Medicaid. I've been working for 40 years in the construction trades. I need my little Social Security nut, and he's on the verge of privatizing it or just getting rid of it as a Ponzi scheme, while President Trump's fooling around with tariffs and threatening everybody he can is destroying my 401k. So, like a lot of working people, we're not real thrilled with this guy who wants to have power over the judiciary, power over the half of Congress that didn't vote for him, and the idea that all of the people who disagree with his policies are summed up as, I think, you call them Marxist, leftist, moombats, blah, blah, blah. It's not a conversation. It's just a lot of invective with no thinking involved. And I hope the people who listen to you can get around that and remember that the people who are getting attacked are working people like me. So,
well, Dan,
I'll listen to your.
No. Don't come on. Don't be a coward. Don't come in with smears and cheap shots and lies and then say you're going to hang up. Number one, it's you Democrats. Let's be clear, led by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, who call Trump supporters Nazis and white supremacists and racists and fascists. So let's not with this invective. You're the ones who started it on the most grotesque level. Number two, Joe Biden completely ignored the Supreme Court ruling on student loan forgiveness. He blatantly, brazenly ignored and violated the Supreme Court. So don't talk to me about respect for an independent judiciary. As for Elon Musk, you're lying. Either you're lying or you're being fed propaganda and misinformation, and you're just mindlessly regurgitating it. He's not going to cut Social Security. Number one, he doesn't have the authority to cut Social Security. He's talking about the federal bureaucracy, which is very different from Social Security. There are no cuts to Social Security, no cuts to Medicare, no cuts to Medicaid. In fact, let me ask you point blank. Show me the evidence. Where are they going to cut Social Security? Show me the legislation. Show me the bill. Where are they going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Or are you just making stuff up?
Well, the Republican budget calls for $880 billion in cuts that can come from nowhere.
That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. The continuing resolution raises defense spending by $6 billion, and it cuts the domestic spending by $13 billion. And Social Security is not touched. Neither is Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, or any entitlement program. So that's a lie. You're lying. You're literally making it up. That's number one. Number two, Trump made it a central campaign promise that he will not touch Social Security. In fact, he's the one that's going to cut taxes, get rid of taxes on Social Security benefits, something Joe Biden and Democrats never did and never will do. And as for being a working guy who's being done in by Trump, right. Trump won the overwhelming majority of working people in this country. White, black, Latino. He's put together a multiracial working class coalition. So my question to you is very simple. The issue now is a judge, a clear moonbat judge, a radical leftist. You look at his record, you look at his policies, you look at his daughter, you look at his pedigree. If this guy's not radical left, then no one's radical left. Now says Trump doesn't have the right to deport Aragua gangbangers, convicted murderers and rapists who are in our country illegally. So let me ask you, does Trump have the authority to deport them? Yes or no?
Because he says they should go.
Not because he says, because they're in our country illegally and they're criminal illegal aliens who have committed heinous crimes.
Flew to El Salvador were tried. How many, Jeff?
They were already convicted.
Oh, is that right, Jeff?
Yes. If you would read, you would know this. In fact, many of them just pulled their records. Many of them were released from jails in Venezuela by Maduro. I mean, literally, are you that ignorant?
Hey, Jeff, you're putting a lot of faith in a guy hired by Trump or put in place by Trump. Remember, Musk said that 90% of the population who want to use their social...
Right. Listen, whatever he said is irrelevant. He's not the president and he's not Congress. There are no Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid cuts. You lied, and I just caught you in a lie. You phony, you fraud, you. But on that note, feel free to call again. Bye-bye.